Imagine a caveman walking into a coffee shop right now. Not a hairy, grunting monster, a real person from 30,000 years ago. Give him a shower, a haircut, and 10 minutes with someone who knows lighting? And nobody in that room would ever guess he spent yesterday scraping meat off a mammoth hide. But here's the twist. Not every ancient human gets that lucky makeover. Go back far enough, and the question stops being, would you date them, and starts being, would security even let them through the door? Somewhere between 5,000 years ago and 2 million years ago, human faces cross a line. A line your brain draws without you even knowing it exists. And the most shocking part? Some of our closest ancient relatives already crossed that line with us. Literally, stay till the end. The last part will completely change how you think about ancient humans. So here's the real question we're chasing today. If you grabbed a random person from deep human history, cleaned them up, dressed them in normal clothes, and dropped them into modern life, would people find them attractive, or would they just look wrong? Turns out, the answer depends entirely on how far back you go. And the deeper we dig, the weirder and more fascinating this gets. Let's start with the easy one. A person from 5,000 years ago. Picture a farmer standing in a field, holding some kind of tool, wearing rough clothing. Biologically, this person is 100% Homo sapiens. Same brain, same face muscles, same ability to smile, laugh, blush, and give you an awkward stare when you catch them looking. Nothing about this person is an early draft of a human. They're the finished product, just living in a different time. Sure, their skin tone, hair color, and features might not match what's common in your neighborhood today, because ancient populations moved around and mixed a lot more than people assume. But every single one of them still falls inside the normal range of what humans look like today. Put this farmer in jeans and a hoodie, and you're not going to spot him in a crowd because of some mysterious ancient energy. You might notice he's lean. Sun-damaged skin, maybe. Calloused hands. Worn down teeth from a hard life. But none of that is alien. Plenty of people today have the exact same features from hard manual labor. Here's something people get wrong constantly. They assume ancient humans just let themselves go. Hair everywhere, no hygiene, no sense of style. Totally false. Archaeologists have found combs, razors, pins, beads, mirrors made of polished stone. People used ochre and pigment on their skin. They wore jewelry made from shells and animal teeth. They cared about how they looked. They just didn't have conditioner. And this actually matters more than you'd think, because attractiveness was never just about bone structure. A skull doesn't smile. It doesn't laugh at your jokes or make eye contact at exactly the right moment. Real attraction needs movement, expression, personality. The stuff that never survives in a fossil. This is actually the biggest problem with how we imagine ancient people. When scientists rebuild a face from a skull, they have to guess at soft tissue. Lips, nose shape, wrinkles, hairstyle, expression. Two artists working from the exact same skull can create two completely different looking people. One decision: is this person clean or dirty, smiling or blank-faced, lit like a mugshot, or lit like a magazine cover? Can completely change whether we think they're attractive before we even really look at the bones. Older reconstructions loved giving ancient people tangled hair and dead-eyed stares, like they'd been dug up mid-funeral. Newer reconstructions sometimes go too far the other way, giving them suspiciously perfect skin and professional eyebrows. Neither one is telling you the whole truth. The skeleton gives you boundaries. It does not give you a dating profile. Now let's go back further. 20, 30,000 years. Ice Age hunters. Now let's talk about teeth, because this is where most people's imaginations go straight to horror movie mode. Black stumps, rotting gums, the whole nightmare? Not necessarily true. Tooth decay is mostly about diet, and some hunter-gatherer groups who avoided sugary, starchy foods actually had fewer cavities than farmers who came later and started eating tons of grain. Other groups that relied on starchy wild plants had way more decay. So it depends entirely on what they were eating. What ancient teeth almost universally had was wear. From tough food, grit that got mixed in during processing, and constantly using teeth as tools, like a built-in Swiss Army knife. Take a healthy 20-year-old from deep prehistory, clean their teeth, treat any infection, remove the built-up plaque, and you'd probably get a mouth that looks a lot better than you'd expect. Not Hollywood white, but not a horror show either. Skin follows the exact same pattern. Ancient people had acne, scars, wrinkles, uneven skin tone, just like us. The only difference is we've got filters, ring lights, and skincare routines specifically engineered to hide all of that. Wash both people. Give both of them medical care. Put them under the same lighting. Suddenly, most of that primitive look disappears down the drain. Smell is the last piece people love to bring up. And sure, an ancient person showing up unannounced might smell like smoke, sweat, animal fat, and whatever chaos happened at camp that week. No deodorant, no washing machine, no emergency mint in the glove box. But that doesn't mean they were biologically doomed to stink forever. They cleaned themselves with whatever water and materials were around. One good shower today would honestly perform a small miracle. So here's where we land on regular, ancient humans. Going back tens of thousands of years, many of them would absolutely be considered attractive today. Most would just look like normal people. Nothing shocking. This is where the story could end. But it doesn't. Because now we bring in someone who isn't fully us. The Neanderthal. Neanderthals lived across Europe and Western Asia until around 40,000 years ago. They were our closest evolutionary cousins. So close that many people alive today, outside of Africa, are walking around with a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA in their genome. Read that again. That means at some point, attraction, or at least contact, happened between our species and theirs. Often enough to leave a permanent genetic fingerprint. That single fact instantly wrecks the old idea that Neanderthals were some ugly evolutionary dead end nobody wanted to be near. But let's be honest about what they actually looked like, because it was genuinely different from us. A long, low skull instead of our tall, rounded one. A heavy ridge of bone above the eyes. A forehead that slopes back instead of standing up straight. A face that pushes forward in the middle, especially around a big, tall nose. A powerful jaw, but often little to no chin. This wasn't the hunched, grunting movie monster you're picturing. Neanderthals stood upright. They made advanced tools. They controlled fire. They hunted dangerous animals. They cared for injured members of their group. They used pigments and decorative objects. Their lives demanded serious intelligence and social skill. But nobody walking around today has their exact face. The nose would probably be the first thing you'd notice. Tall, prominent, dominating the middle of the face. Deep-set eyes tucked under that heavy brow. On a man, modern viewers might actually read all that heavy bone structure as extremely masculine. On a woman, those same ancient traits might clash harder with today's beauty standards, which usually lean towards softer, more delicate features. But here's the important part. None of this guarantees an automatic verdict of unattractive. Human beauty standards already swing wildly depending on culture and era. Fashion has taken traits once considered flaws, slapped them on a famous face, and suddenly convinced everyone they were wrong about beauty the whole time. A Neanderthal wouldn't look like an ugly modern human. They'd look like a completely different kind of human. And that unfamiliarity is exactly what would hit first, before anyone had time to actually judge the face fairly. Our brains size up faces by comparing them to every face we've ever seen. Familiar patterns feel comfortable. Totally unfamiliar structure feels strange, even if it's symmetrical and perfectly healthy. But here's the twist. Exposure changes everything. If Neanderthals had survived alongside us into today's world, appearing in movies, sports, politics, everyday life, our entire idea of a normal human face would have grown to include them. Beauty brands would build entire product lines around their bone structure. Someone somewhere would swear that heavy brow ridge had secretly been the ideal all along. Now here's the fun part. Give a Neanderthal the exact same makeover we gave the Ice Age hunter. Clean skin, healthy teeth, trimmed hair, clothes that actually fit their proportions. Let them choose their own expression instead of the blank, dead stare you see in museum reconstructions. The result would still be unmistakably Neanderthal. And it might still be attractive. Not to everyone. Not by the narrowest modern beauty standards, but a healthy, symmetrical, expressive, confident person can cross a shocking amount of anatomical distance. And remember, the reverse is just as true. Take a modern human, strip away sleep, dental care, grooming, good clothing, and any hint of expression, and watch how far in the opposite direction they travel. Now let's go even further back. Homo erectus, appearing nearly 2 million years ago, spread across Africa and Asia. This wasn't one single uniform-looking population either. Fossils vary a lot depending on location and time period. But generally, picture a heavy, continuous brow ridge, a low forehead, a jutting face, a big jaw, and no chin at all. The brain case was smaller and shaped differently from ours. Below the neck, though, things get surprisingly familiar. Long legs, efficient upright walking, built for covering serious distance. From behind, dressed in modern clothes, some might genuinely pass as human in a crowd. Then they turn around, and that face reads instantly as something ancient, not cruelly unattractive, just unmistakably archaic to modern eyes trained on high foreheads, small jaws, and defined chins. But here's a mindbender. Imagine growing up inside a Homo erectus community. Every face you've ever trusted has that brow ridge and that jaw. Healthy adults in your world display all the local signs of strength, fertility, kindness, and competence, using that exact bone structure. In that world, our tall, rounded modern forehead might look weak, unfinished, oddly inflated. We only think our features are the correct ones because everyone we compare ourselves to also has them. Homo erectus didn't need our approval. They found partners, raised children, and survived on this planet for an absolutely staggering length of time. Longer, actually, than our own species has existed so far. Push back even further into Australopithecus territory, and the whole conversation shifts. These were upright walkers with small brains, projecting faces, and much more ape-like proportions overall. Some had enormous jaws and cheekbones, built for serious chewing power. At this point, calling them attractive or unattractive starts to feel like judging a completely different species by human dating standards, because that's essentially what's happening. The question has traveled outside its useful range. And that reveals the real dividing line here. It was never really about dirt, or body hair, or how rough someone's life was. It's about how far a face has drifted from the specific human template your brain was trained on since birth. Recent ancient humans stay comfortably inside that template. Neanderthals sit right on the edge, close enough that expression, health, and personality can compete with unfamiliar bone structure. Homo erectus pushes further out. Australopithecus crosses into territory our brains would probably file under different creature, even though that creature is technically on our own family tree. One more twist before we wrap this up. We usually imagine the most attractive modern person standing next to an average, beat-up, ancient skeleton. That's not a fair fight. Fossils survive by pure luck. Many belong to people who were old, sick, injured, or crushed after burial. Reconstructions often aim for the typical example of a species, not the unusually striking individual who would have absolutely dominated a modern dating app. Every single population in history had outliers. Somewhere out there was the most balanced Neanderthal face that ever existed. Somewhere was a Homo erectus with unusually clear skin, symmetrical features, and whatever counted as devastating eye contact 800,000 years ago. We will never recover that person from a brow ridge and 3 teeth in a museum drawer. And we can't measure the parts of attraction that never fossilize at all. Voice, humor, competence, kindness, the way someone moves. The confidence of knowing you can find water while everyone else around you is slowly becoming a fossil. So here's the real, honest answer. For modern humans going back tens of thousands of years, yes, without question, many of them would be considered attractive today. Not every individual, because that's never been true for any population in history. But plenty would walk past you completely unnoticed, and some would fit today's beauty standards remarkably well, given the same grooming and healthcare we all rely on. For Neanderthals, the answer gets personal and cultural. Their faces and bodies were genuinely, visibly different, and narrow modern beauty standards would probably rate them poorly on average. But health, symmetry, expression, strength, and personality could still make specific individuals attractive to specific modern people. And history already proved it. Some of that contact turned intimate enough to leave a mark on our DNA that survives to this day. For Homo erectus and everyone before them, attraction by modern standards becomes less and less likely, simply because their faces sit further and further outside the range our brains recognize as normal human variation. The deeper you go, the less this question is actually measuring their beauty. It's measuring our familiarity. And here's the powerful part. Ancient people were never some uniformly ugly, dirty, hunched over version of us just waiting around for shampoo to finish evolution. Recent prehistoric humans were us, living under brutal, different conditions. Their faces knew sunlight, hunger, laughter, grief, injury, and affection. They judged each other constantly, using their own standards in their own world. And every single person alive today exists because attraction or partnership or connection kept happening generation after generation all the way back. Neanderthals weren't a failed, rough draft of humanity either. They had their own successful anatomy, shaped by their own ancestry, climate, and way of life. We just judge their faces using a standard invented long after they were already gone. And then act surprised when they don't match it. Beauty has always depended on who's around to compare yourself to. Change the population, and the average shifts. Change the culture, and the ideal shifts with it. Change the lighting, and apparently everyone gets a little more attractive. The most striking ancient human you can imagine might have walked past modern eyes completely unnoticed. Or they might have had a face no reconstruction has ever truly captured. Strong, asymmetric, expressive, scarred, unforgettable. A face that only made sense in motion. Chosen not by an algorithm, not by a beauty standard, but by one human standing near a fire, deciding to move a little closer. We'll never know for certain if we'd make that same decision today. But for most of our history, the person sitting beside that fire wasn't some primitive stranger. They were a modern human, just without the modern packaging